And I love her voice, the recording in progress lady. So welcome to our spiritual emotional intelligence, or SEQ call. We're going to be talking about a topic today really centered around two words: connection and integration. My name's Lynette Vave, as Eric and Jeff already introduced themselves, and we know Mark from living in Columbus. So Latasha, you might be our only one outside of the regional area of Columbus, Ohio, and we're very thankful to have you here with us today. But we're going to explore this topic in a way that hopefully will provide a respite from the busyness, because I'm certainly right there this week, and a way to help us explore together something that might be current to these times that we're living in at the moment. So Jim, if you'd introduce yourself, then I'll share the slides.
My name is Mark Sanifer, and I live in Westerville, Ohio. No, my name is Jim, and I'm married to Lynette, and I'm very happy to be here with everybody.
Thank you, Jim. So let me share my screen, and we're going to put up some pictures. And I'm going to show you three. And as you consider this topic of connection / integration, or connection and integration, I'd like you to think about which one of these most represents that for you. So there's the first one. Connection and integration. There's the second one. And there's the third one. Connection and integration. So we might go into a couple breakouts later, but I think with the small group that we have right now, we'll just stay together. By the way, while I'm sharing, I heard the dog. We have dogs and babies and children on every call all the time these days for the last couple of years. So, you know, we take it as part of the course. So as I'm sharing my screen, at the top of the screen, you'll see Lynette Vave sharing her screen. And then to the right of that, you'll see a little black box that says view options. So if you click on that black box and you scroll down, you'll see an option that says side-by-side mode. And there are a couple of vertical lines there. If you grab those with your cursor, you can slide those to the left if you want to see more people, and to the right if you want to see more slide. So hopefully that's a helpful little bit of navigation for you. And I think we just had Becky join us. And I'm trying to get where I can see everyone. She's still connecting to audio. So as you look at these three and you think about these concepts of connection and integration, how do these resonate for you on a spiritual level? So I'll go ahead and put that question in the chat, but how do these pictures, or is one of them more, which picture best represents this for you? And how does that resonate for you? Which picture represents connection and integration for you? We'll take that as a two-parter. Let's just talk about that question first, and then we'll go to the second question. So anybody, whenever you're ready, go ahead and unmute.
Lynette, I'll go. For me, it would be number 3. And that's just representative of where I'm at currently as it relates to the things that we are working on at Spirit of EQ and helping our audience and beyond to come to some breakthroughs and discovery around this thing called spiritual intelligence, but also how it connects to emotional intelligence and personality.
Thank you, Eric. Someone else, which picture resonates for you or represents for you best these concepts of connection and integration?
I think for me, I also agree with Eric with number 3. it's something about the person at the far left, whichever way you're looking at it, is connected to the person at the far right or top and bottom, however that is, by that tree. They're connected by a common thing. In this case, it's the tree or tree branch. It could be a common belief. It could be a common project, a common hurt. So I think that's, to me, I think that represents.
Thank you, Jeff. Jim, you're unmuted. Do you want to share which one represents connection and integration most for you?
I think today, and what I've been working on lately is number one, which is with myself, connection with myself and with God, as I understand God. And I'm doing that to reintegrate into a deeper walk. So that resonates with me. I want to be able to understand how I intersect with the other people groups that are listed, but I need to take care of myself at the moment.
Thank you, Jim.
I connect more with number 3 as well, because to me it represents a lot of people coming together for not only just a common goal, but really understanding that we all have a part and we can all gather together and more work can get done when we work together.
Thank you, Latasha. Becky, I don't know if you can hear, if you have the ability to speak with us, but we can leave an opening if you'd like to introduce yourself and which one of these pictures represents connection and integration most for you.
I'm Becky Heskett from Indiana, and I know I've talked to you before a little bit about my interest in the integration of the spiritual and emotional intelligence. And for me, I would have to say number 1. I just feel like that's more of a complete connection. And so that's the one that resonates with me.
Thank you, Becky.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be different. For me, it was number 2 when I saw that. And we'll talk a little bit more about various kinds of connections in a bit, but one of the ones that's most challenging for me to maintain outside of my relationship with Jim, but those closer relationships, and that's what that represents to me, the people that I know and want to maintain longer term relationships. The first one represents for me connection with myself. The third one represents connection with lots of people. And I feel like those 2 areas are a little stronger, but intentionally pouring into the others that are important in my life without compromising my connection with myself is and probably will always be a growing edge for me. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Enneagram, but the Enneagram type 2 that I am, as the giver, tends to lend itself to giving oneself away more readily. So the importance of boundaries, all of that's represented for me in these 2 pinkies connecting with each other, because that's not a way I would do visually or with a hand. That's actually where I got the idea of maybe hands, different hands can begin to represent some of these different types of connection. So I'd really like to think about, how is this topic important right now? And Jim, I'm just going to turn it over to you for a few minutes. What's the importance of connection and integration with the world we're living in right now?
So I think I want to ask Becky a fast question because I'm just nosy, Becky, but are you in and around the Anderson, Indiana area?
Yes, I taught at Anderson University and I live about a half hour north of there.
All right. I have a good friend that lives in Anderson.
Okay, great. Yes, I've been around the Muncie Anderson area most of my life and have been involved with emotional intelligence for over 20 years. So I appreciate your session today.
Yeah, I met Sandy Patty when I was over there a while ago.
Yes, she went to Anderson University and then was also my neighbor for a while. So Sandy and Don Peslis. They're great people.
Cool. So one of the things that's coming up for me, and Lynette and I were talking about this the other day, we have a pandemic on our hands, and I bet you that might come as a shock to everybody. But the pandemic doesn't really care what our faith structure is. It doesn't really care who we know. It doesn't really care what our beliefs are about vaccines, not vaccines, masks, not masks. It really doesn't care. And so from an emotional, spiritual understanding, how do you think these connections work in this time that's different if I'd asked you this question 2 years ago? Because I don't know about the rest of you, but when I go to spiritual gatherings now, you don't hug people anymore, because you don't know whether, hey, get away from me, or yeah, come on in. And that tends to disfuel connection, if that's what you were remembering or wanting to do. So when you look at these pictures, you think about our pandemic times that we're living in, the way that everything has changed as we know it. What does this suggest to you? So Lynette and I are completely okay with silence.
I'm going to jump in again first, if you don't mind. I picked the image for number 3, and what it represented to me in that context was the fact that it represents a number of people of various walks, various backgrounds, faiths, the whole 9 yards, right? And I think the pandemic kind of pulled the rug out from underneath what we maybe thought we knew. And everybody's different, I know, in this regard. But I think about the work that we're involved in at Spirit of EQ, and then just even in my own journey about the importance of sometimes rediscovery, and then also maybe for the first time discovering some things that maybe pre-pandemic, when things were what we would used to call normal, are no longer, which I think in some ways makes this last 2 years somewhat of a gift as well.
Mark, you were going to talk next. You had unmuted, and please unmute again.
All right, I've been unmuted. So my left brain was working overtime to identify the right picture, which is why I did not contribute. But if I had to choose, it would have been number 2, partly because until Lynette, no one else chose number 2, so I didn't want 2 to be left out. But there was a deep familiarity and intimacy implied in just the little bit of the touch of the fingertips. And Jim, I'm not sure this gets at the question that you were asking, but with respect to COVID, it seems like it made it just that much easier to fear somebody else or fear something or not trust somebody, or to just further divide, further pull apart, further separate, the opposite of connect and integrate. It was just a reason, and in some respects for good measure, but it was a reason for us not to connect and come together, but in fact, even push us further apart.
Okay, thank you.
When, I picked number 3 with the different people, and I am thinking about that, the log or the branch, whatever it is, how people are needing something to cling to. to either to float so they don't drown or so they don't get blown away by all the COVID winds or whatever kind of things that they're dealing with, and how if people can get together when they're needing to do that, the integration, the connection, how much easier it will be to survive.
Okay, and Lynette, you're unmuted.
I think for me, this whole notion of connection has been challenged and highlighted and magnified during these last almost 2 years now, because what I relied on as more superficial connection before was the many. And Jim and I didn't mention, but we're also the regional network directors in North America for a global nonprofit called 6 Seconds. So we're regularly engaging with people from all over the world and regularly engaging with many people in North America. And for me, the connection that is work and relationship in that frame that snags my attention frequently. So my focus tends to be there. As I mentioned before, it's paying attention to my self-connection and those with the people that are closest to me that I have to be intentional about because of the boundaries and the demand of the many in my current role. So that's where it is for me. The pandemic allowed some of the, not necessarily time, but allowed some of the focus on my connection with myself and with people closest to me when the traveling all over came to a stop, and now that's virtual. So that's sort of where I am right now. I think it's challenged every level of connection, created opportunities and new challenges.
So Becky and Latasha, I don't call on you because I feel like you need to talk. I call on you because it's an invitation to talk if you choose to. So if either one of you would like to talk, or neither of you, please do.
Okay, I mean, I agree with everything everyone says, because I do feel myself stepping back sometimes when somebody reached to hug me, and I'm like, we got a pandemic here. And I'm not gonna be at home sick. That's all unnecessary. But I think that it taught us, though, that there are many different ways to connect. Because like I was in a Clubhouse today. I don't know if everybody know about the Clubhouse app.
We do.
I was in there for the first time. You can't see anybody. All you can do is just hear them. And the connection was still there. And I think if we look at it that way, then I think we really won't have a connection problem. I might not be able to touch you, which in some cases is cool with me. But I mean, everybody don't. Okay, I'm different and I'm from the South, so I'm gonna say this. If it's a problem, just let me know. But everybody don't wash their hands. Everybody sneeze, or some people sneeze all on other people. So, I considered it as somewhat a blessing in some respects, but people that I normally hug, I do miss that. But at the same time, I'm still connecting with you. You just can't allow the pandemic to just take everything away from you.
Love the comments. I used to live down south, so I'm feeling very comfortable with your comments. Becky, I don't want to pass you over if you want to say something.
No, I'm fine right now. Thanks.
All right. So I just want to, before I turn it back over to Lynette, I just want to say that this gave me an understanding, this pandemic, of, I'm going to say it, joy. And here's why. When I connect with God as I understand it, or the Holy Spirit, I hear these words in my mind. Love, beloved, step this way and trust me. And I'm trying to live into that. Lynette?
Thank you, Jim. So I'm going to share the slides one more time. And what we hope to do in these calls is really a chance for all of us to just think about things that we may or may not take the time to in any given day, particularly not in a given work day when there are many demands on us. So I'd like you to think about some of these, and then Jim's going to invite you to a breakout discussion after. I'm just going to go through some quick definitions. Now, are these the best ones? Maybe, maybe not, but just something to spur your thoughts about what some of these terms are. So what is spirituality? So here's some quotes that I found in my search. Spirituality involves the recognition of a feeling or sense or belief that there is something greater than myself, something more to being human than sensory experience. That the greater whole of which we are a part is cosmic or divine in nature. Spirituality means knowing that our lives have significance in a context beyond a mundane, everyday existence at the level of biological needs that drive selfishness and aggression. It means knowing that we are a significant part of a purposeful unfolding of all life in our universe. So what is connection? Something that is linked with another or associated with another, or that there is a relationship between two or more things. What is integration? In the context of the spiritual journey, spiritual integration is about living the discoveries and gifts you've attained rather than just thinking about them. It's too easy to be philosophical and think deep thoughts, but to embody what you've realized is a whole other matter. So Jim, would you like to set up the discussion for the breakouts, please?
So if you go into the discussion, think about these three questions. What helps to create or strengthen that connection we were talking about? What is the role of integration in that connection? And how do those two things or more impact our spirituality as we understand it? So Lynette put those into the chat. And Lynette, I think you're probably going to put us into rooms.
I am. They are actually ready. We're going to go in the rooms for about 12 minutes. There's 3 people in each room. So you'll have 3-4 minutes a person. And then we'll come back and we'll do a little synthesis and talk about some next steps beyond today's session. All right, so I'm opening the rooms now. Please go ahead and accept your invitation.
Wow, that was exciting.
All right, welcome back.
So group number 1 was Jeff and Eric, and group number 2 was Mark and Becky. So, and other people that I don't see here, Cole Hayes is on. I happen to know Cole Hayes. Hi, Cole. And who wants to talk about their groups? Eric or Jeff or Mark or Becky?
And we had Latasha too, Jim.
Okay, Latasha.
She can talk. You didn't mention her.
No, y'all can go ahead and talk, but I don't know how you forgot about me that quick.
I don't know what's wrong with me. Will you ever forgive me?
I sure will. That's what we do in the South. We're very forgiving.
I didn't hear her, Latasha. I did not hear her bless his heart.
Now, I don't normally say that.
Oh, that's good.
So who
go
wants
ahead.
to share from your group?
Yeah. So Jeff, since you spoke up, you can take a little bit and I'll follow up if you want.
Okay, we just talked about how important it is to figure out, and I just talked myself into a corner, that these all go hand in hand with the people we're around, how when you do develop that connection and you do integrate people into the situation, and you let it flow, that there will be a spiritual connection, that you will be in a place where it's very meaningful instead of the, I would say surface, but a lot of times it's even hovering above the surface conversations we have, where that it just is more meaningful.
I think the other part that came out, especially in America, right? We wear so many masks. And I think these steps and those questions were very good prompters about the key is getting to the place of where you can show up at the table as you really are. Really are. And don't get me wrong, I understand that can be fraught with a lot of trepidation and fear to do that. But I don't think until we do that, I mean, it just makes life very, very difficult absent of that.
Thank you. Mark and Becky, we've got about another minute or so. Did either one of you want to share?
Well, I don't know that we got as deep as Jeff and Eric.
And Latasha, we can't forget her.
Well, she was there. I don't know how deep she got, but she didn't offer. So I'm just recognizing those that offer.
We were just sharing what she said, so it was
Oh,
all
there you go. Well, you should have led with that, Jeff. That would have been good. Yeah, I mean, I guess just well, lots of different ways I could go here, but reflecting on how the connection happens because we take initiative, because we actively work at making the connection and grow it. We're agents there in the process. We give and receive in order for connection to happen. And we kind of touched a little on the spiritual piece. I don't, Becky, you can offer what you would like to there, but I think it was just, if nothing else, it was a good reminder that even in the midst of whatever's happening around, you can be still finding ways to connect and integrate.
So Becky, did you want to, other than the cooties, bring us on home?
We were talking about that it really gave us an opportunity for connection with people in our home and building, I guess, stronger relationships personally when we had the slowdown with the pandemic. And I mentioned that, I really value quality time with people and really realized that a lot of the connection I was able to make once I slowed down, because I retired too, or was teaching online, was having more time for the connection with the Holy Spirit, which was the spirituality part, and finding that could meet some of your needs for your connection. And the integration still has to come as much, I think, when we think about living versus just thinking about it, because I've been doing a lot of thinking and meditating and writing notes and, a lot of things kind of more internally. And I know Mark brought up being present. And I think that's something in our busy lives that I always struggled with, was really listening and being present versus thinking about the million different things I had to do and run different directions. And so it's been a real blessing and brought a lot of joy and peace in my life during the pandemic. I said to have this slower pace and more intentional connections. And I think when you do finally connect with someone, you value it more too.
Thank you very much, everybody. And I'll turn it back over to Lynette.
All right, let me just give you a couple of other graphics here that we're looking at. So in the framework that we're using, this term spiritual emotional intelligence, this is what we mean: that capacity to utilize both emotional and spiritual insight to enhance your life, to make it all that you'd like it to be. It's been probably about 5 or 6 years since Jim and I and Jeff and a couple of other folks along the way, and then more recently Eric and another person named Ajane out in California began working around this model based on the 6 seconds assessment for emotional intelligence. And we now have an assessment and a couple of reports. One's a one-pager that we have, and something more in depth is due to be launched soon. We don't have the exact launch date yet, but it's around this model. And when we talk about these things that are in the outside, in the outer ring, in the black cursive writing, those are the areas that we're talking about. We're talking about awareness and that connection with yourself. We're talking about belonging and that connection with the people that are closest to you or your community. And then insight, we're talking about connection with the larger world. And that may include a vertical connection with a higher power. So this is actually a faith neutral assessment, which means that hopefully people of all faiths can connect with the framework and then apply it specifically to their faith structure if they have one, or if they don't have one, even just in the insight connection with people outside of myself or the larger world in a more general sense. So that's just the framework. I'm going to ask Jim to leave. We're going to talk. We try to do an SEQ challenge at the end of every call. So I'm going to ask him to share that with you. And then Eric, I'll go over to you and to talk about some opportunities that are coming up soon. So Jim, I'll just show this graphic as this represents for us this connection with all of us together and some integration. And then I'll stop the share so you can share this challenge for us.
So this is from Richard Rohr. He wrote A Solid Foundation, and he quoted a couple of theologians, and one of them is Kate Bowler. And so I'm going to read this to you, and it is in its entirety a challenge. So it's going to take me about 3 minutes. I am self-made. Didn't anyone tell you? An entire self-help and wellness industry made sure that we got the memo. We are supposed to articulate our lives as a solitary story of realization and progress. Work, learn, fix, change. Every exciting action sounds like it's designed for an individual who needs to learn how to conquer a world of their own making. It's hard to remember a deeper, comforting truth. We are built on a foundation not our own. We were born because two people created a combination of biological matter. We went to schools where dozens and dozens of people crafted ideas and activities to construct those categories in our minds. We learned skills honed by generations of craft people. We pray and worship with spiritual ideas refined by centuries of tradition. Almost nothing about us is original. Thank God. Whether it is our parents, our teachers, mentors, friends, churches, or neighbors, people have been pouring into us. We are standing on a foundation. It should come as an incredible relief, everybody. Our only job is to build on what we've been given. And even then, even our gifts, we can trace back to the creativity, generosity, and foresights of others. Thank God we are a group project. How can you be a group project where you are right now? Lynette?
Thank you, Jim. Taking that just one step further before I turn it over to Eric. How can you be fully connected to yourself, to the people closest to you in your community, to the world at large, and a higher power, God, if that fits your faith structure? And how do you integrate all of the parts that you are so that you can be fully, to the best of your ability, that group project? Eric, can you share with us what's coming up in the next few months, please?
You'll have to pardon me. Jim has this way of like dropping these wonderful bombs, and then you're left going, okay, wow, I wasn't expecting that. So thank you, Jim. So as I pivot here, one of the things I've been talking with Jim and Lynette about for months, probably been going back to when we first started doing these monthly calls, is that it would be really, really great if we could move to a place where people could join in on a regular time and setting to go deeper with this. Because a lot of what happened here today is not duplicated from the previous, but it's a session, you get some information, and then some will come back, some maybe we never see again. So we wanted to get a little bit more intentional and give specifically today, you guys an opportunity to be on purpose about this journey. I feel really, really passionate about the work that we're doing and what Jim and Lynette are bringing to the table in relating to this spiritual intelligence and to our tool, the spiritual emotional intelligence. So starting on February 10th, we're going to offer a 6-month cohort, as we call it, where you can do just that. It's designed for you to be able, again, to be more intentional about this journey. It's designed for you to be able to learn from Lynette and Jim and their vast background, which they've been holding back a little bit. They've got a lot of background in this area that goes beyond from what we talked today. So the cost for the program is $199. You have those 6 1-hour sessions. But what I even think is really cool, and they've been gracious to offer this as well, is that each person will have a 1-hour one-on-one with them as well, which can lead to some really powerful things. Again, speaking from experience, where I've been able to do that in my interactions with Jim and Lynette over the last 5 years or so. So if you're interested in doing that, what I can do is we have your emails from your signing up for this program. And you may have seen this already in some of our social media platforms, but you can go to Eventbrite, it's the same spot that you went to sign up for this session, and you can sign up and begin. One thing I will throw out to you sort of as a last, and I'll give you an opportunity if you have questions for me. If you sign up before January 29th, there is a 20% discount on that $199. So we've priced it in a way that we really want to invite you to kind of join the journey. And that 20% is just another incentive that way as well. So I'll pause there and I'll answer any questions you may have about the cohort or the why behind it. As Jim said earlier, I'm more than happy to. Oh, I think, Becky, were you getting ready to say something?
Yes, if you could go into more detail, you said the cohort, but what are the objectives, I guess? What you'll be learning or accomplishing? Maybe I missed it. I wasn't as present as I should be.
No, that's okay. Maybe I'll throw that to you, Jim and Lynette. I know I'll say one thing. A number of I mean, the subject matter is certainly going to be primarily about spiritual emotional intelligence and how that is integrated, right? There will also be reference points into this tool that we talked about. But I'll let Jim, Lynette, if you want to throw in maybe a couple other things that you're thinking of with this too.
I'm trying to pop that into the chat, but I don't think I'm going to find it in time. But it's under design right now, but I would say there's really two objectives. One is to provide calls similar to this that help move us out of that day-to-day busy, got to get this done, to create the time to think about concepts like this. They are sort of part of the model that we're talking about, but they're not confined to that. Last year, we took a journey looking at different things. For example, in the big domain of insight, we looked at a couple of words that relate to that. One of them being non-duality and something else. I forget what our other word was. And then we looked at belonging and vulnerability. And I forget what the one was in the awareness domain, but concepts that we don't have to have answers about, as the spiritual journey is about the journey as much as the destination. And that may be defined differently for different individuals. We've had the pleasure of working with people from India, from Canada, from Africa, from all over the world. And of course, the frame and the viewpoint may be different, and yet we are all connected. The other point, as Eric mentioned, was to actually work a bit with some of the reports on the assessment. So right now we have the one-page profile that uses the frame and the model that we talked about with you, and offers some things for consideration, not in great depth. That's what the full report will show when it becomes available. So it has application for coaching, it has application for spiritual direction, it has application for really anyone that likes to know more about themselves and consider these concepts that are not what we're talking about every day when we get on our phones and look at Facebook and Instagram and all of the social media. I'm sure I'm not up to date because I don't keep up with Twitter and Instagram. I stalk people, but I don't engage much. And so, how do we move out of this frame of get it done, 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 to what's underneath the surface of all of this that helps fuel my purpose in the world in a way that allows me to be fully integrated with the reason that I was created, and to live that in service to everyone else.
And so I would close that part by saying this. Becky, to direct this towards you, I'm a spiritual director, been one for about 30 years. And Lynette and I are both professional certified coaches. And this cohort is going to be more around coaching and spiritual direction. And it's going to give you tools to be able to take along on the journey, to help you. And some people, I would say this, some people have monsters in their lives. And the spiritual direction and the professional coaching walks into the mists of people's spiritual journeys and helps them with tools to either slay the monsters, avoid the monsters, or whatever you want to call it. And so what we're trying to do is do a practical application of spiritual direction, emotional intelligence, and give you the tools to deepen your relationship in a way that you want to.
All right, thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you, Jim and Lynette. I also might say, as I know we're getting close to the end, a big why around this that I've been observing in the work we're doing is that the personas have kind of overtaken the spirit. And I think that has created a lot of the problems that we experience. This cohort is a step, is an offering to help people begin to maybe start paying attention to their spirit, and maybe, who knows, maybe blossom that so that becomes what's front and center versus our persona. So with that, I did put a link in the chat to the Eventbrite site if you'd like to sign up. You know how to get a hold of Spirit of EQ if you have questions after the session today. It's just simply info@spiritofeq.com. And with that, Lynette, you want to close us?
Sure. And Eric, if they want the recording from the session, can they just email info@spiritofeq.com as well? Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's all we have, except to thank you very much for joining us. And we hope to see you in the cohort. And if not, maybe on some future event. But we hope that you think more about these concepts and go beyond that thinking to the application of connection and integration and how that affects your own spirituality and the way you walk in the world. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank
See
you.
ya.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.